So I didn't think that I was going to do this topic, a video for quite a while. It's super ambitious and so vast, and I know I'm going to miss some points that I've thought of over the years um, and think about them later and say, I wish I would have included that. But this topic has just come into my mind and it's big and I want to go for it in my current state and see what I can share and get out there, and maybe I'll have to include a sequel or something once I remember more. But the topic that I want to share my perspectives on today is just what are the different factors that are involved with the energy and the psychology of the United States, and specifically over the past 6 to 12 years or something. What's been happening over the past 6 to 12 years that is influencing the minds and the energies, the cultural dynamics that we see today. And I think this can also ripple out, U.S. culture influence. In a way, I feel like U.S. culture is kind of on the extreme and on the forefront in a lot of ways, and it does filter into other countries as well, but it's mostly in the United States that I'm speaking of. So I want to share some things I've noticed, some intuitions and things that I feel like I have an understanding of from a perspective of, and a lot of these things that are happening, I think in a way seem unexpected, but as I've looked at life more through a lens of how does the mind work, how does healing work, and what goes on in a somatic healing process, and why do certain patterns exist, and why do certain patterns persist, and just the nature of humans to react if they're not doing spiritual practices, just like the natural reactive nature of the mind and the emotions. So I think through the lens of these things, yoga philosophy and nervous system also is a big thing that I think isn't spoken about a lot, that has a huge influence on what you see in culture and human behavior, the state of people's nervous systems. So through all of these perspectives, I want to go over what's been happening in the United States the last 6 to, or maybe what is it? Not even 6, since 2016, 8 years ago, 8 to 12 years, the last 8 to 12 years. And what's the reason I want to do this? I mean, I think it's interesting. For me, it helps me to understand things. When I understand things, when I feel like I understand what's happening, it helps me to be less in a state of duality. Like, I might see something, experience some behavior or pattern, and I get triggered by it, and it's like, I don't like it. Something's wrong. Something's not the way it should be. And it's easy to get into duality and a good versus bad type of scenario, which you're seeing so much more of now. But I feel like when I have understanding, when I understand things more, then I have more compassion. And I can see that thing and still not, Amma talks about disliking, hating the behavior, but not the person. And I think this can apply to groups too. Like, you see group behavior, group patterns, and you don't like the behavior, but underneath, Amma also says even a murderer will have a glint of love in his eye for his own child. So everybody has that spark of the divine and that spark of good in them. And, when we have appropriate boundaries and understanding, I think it's really important to be able to see the good in others, to treat them and to see them with humanness, even as we're seeing things that we may not agree with or have a hard time with. So, the reason I want to talk about this is because of that, because I think having that awareness is important. I think it also helps us do our own inner work. How do we relate to what's going on? What do I accept and what do I not accept? Can I accept the way things are? And I think the more we are aware of, the more we have the ability to accept, rather than just go through life bouncing around through our feelings, or just maybe shutting down, or a lot of people will just shut down their awareness. They'll ignore things that are going on. They don't have the capacity to feel all that's happening because it's so much. and other people will just get bounced around by their feelings all over the place and have no stability. And so I think it's important to have both, to have the feeling and to have the stability and clarity. And it's only through awareness and reflection and spiritual practices and knowing how to process through things and work with the mind that we're able to do that. So is there anything else? Yeah, so having what the reason, and also then we know what to do with it. We can it seems like things are getting, so many people feel probably like things are so much worse than ever. Things are so much worse than ever, but it's like, I think maybe there might be some, in some ways I think that's true. In other ways I think also things are better than ever. And if you look in the past, has there ever been a time when there weren't crazy wars and just terribly toxic behavior and patterns? I mean, like, when Yogananda was writing his autobiography of a yogi, World War I was going on. It's like millions of people were just like firing at each other in trenches, and millions of people were dying. Like, it's so insane. Or World War II, can you imagine, like, if you actually knew what was happening at the time, like, there would be so much reason to be depressed for the sake of civilization and humanity, but people were still able to pick up the pieces and move on and still have hope. And I think, one thing that we've lost is, like, the minds have gotten so agitated for so many people that we have given up. The minds have given up. We've given up hope. And I think that's it's not indicative of reality. I think it's just indicative of the way that people are processing the energy and the way that the collective minds in certain places are behaving, and so it's kind of infectious. So these are the reasons I want to bring these to our attention, so we have some clarity, some space, just so we can process through it at our time and have clarity, and to be able to be with it without being as affected by it. Like, when you're too close to something, it's easy to affect you. Like, Amma also says a surgeon will never operate on his own son or partner because he's just too emotionally close. He, even if he's the best surgeon, he'll refer his partner to another surgeon because it's just, there's too much at stake. So we need to have some distance and separation to be able to see things, to have that space, and to know our own place within it. Also to see, what can I do? We want to change everything immediately, and we get overwhelmed and bogged down with the weight of caring too much. But nobody can do everything. And when we know, when we have our strength, when we have our inner center, and we see what's out there in the landscape, we can say, okay, maybe I can't change everything, but these are my strengths. These are where I see an opportunity. Maybe I can just throw my hat in the ring in this area and just try my best. And I think that's important to prevent overwhelm. If we haven't been able to, if we see so much, we know too much, and we haven't processed it through, we're just going to be overwhelmed, and it's, our psyche is going to be in conflict. So so I've spent almost 9 minutes just with the introduction. So maybe this will either be a really long video or I'll have to break it up. But speaking of being overwhelmed with information, I think that brings me to the first point, which is the internet. So the internet has been such a blessing and a curse in so many ways that, people are just now starting to understand, as well as there's probably so many ways that we don't even understand. Each little incremental change, I remember, it's like all of a sudden there's ads, and all of a sudden there's pop-ups, and these all of a sudden there's the Google search is a little more biased towards certain things, and it's less egalitarian. All these things have been chipping away at us for so long, and each one of those changes was significant, and now we're just inundated. But the main thing that I see in terms of the internet is just pure overwhelm of information. There's just so much information on all the topics, and it never ends. And humans, their minds, the ego wants to know. Before, if we didn't know something, we had no way of knowing unless we ask someone, or we go to a library, or we just happen to read it in a book, or, you know, take a class. You know, we had to have this type of patience that we never had before. So now there's, you know, there's an ability to quench that insatiable need to know everything. And in a way, it's very useful, but also in a way, it doesn't allow for the space to process. It doesn't allow for the space to integrate and process and to move at a organic rate. It just kind of, we can know a lot of information without really working through it. You know, things, you know, and I'm thinking especially about like big things like the environment, what's going on in the environment, what's going on in like food systems, what's going on in like other different systems like healthcare and school, and things that, you know, societal, like now we have, or even other cultures, other perspectives of other religions, for example, or other spiritual practices, cultural practices, worldviews that are, so these, you know, informationally, these are so useful, and it prevents us from being, you know, I think the US was kind of famous for just like not caring about other cultures, having this kind of superiority complex. They didn't really need any outside influences. They were the one, you know, the US is the one that creates and that's leading the way, and all the other ones are backwards. And but you know, so they didn't really take, you know, foreign things like were, I think, kind of seen as a bit inferior most of the time. And it was hard, you know, before the internet's hard to access. But now people, you know, especially with the younger generation, you have this curiosity. You want to know why things are the way they are, and you start to see, you know, you don't drink the Kool-Aid as easily when you're younger, and they see so many different cultures and different perspectives sharing information that was never shared before due to like cultural taboos and things like that, about sex, about making money, about how to behave and what to say, and how to just be, how to deal with emotions, and how, you know, there's so many different ways to approach these things. And before there was like kind of cultural regional differences, and now you have all the options, all the choices, and it's like, well, this doesn't make sense. And so with that, you know, you have so much information, but you know what yoga teaches us, what is that it's, learning isn't so simple as, you know, as just information. There's information, and then there's integrated wisdom and integrated knowledge. And you know, the school system in the US is very focused on just information. And do you know the, you know, can you repeat the information? Can you repeat these reasons? And can you repeat, you know, can you do this formula? And can you remember, you know, can you remember what the cause of this disease is and what to do about it? But it doesn't really teach a lot of critical thinking and deep understanding. And so, and that deep understanding and thinking requires meditation and seeing things from so many different angles and understanding it from all, you know, like when you become a teacher, you find this, like every student kind of has their own understanding. And if you're going to be a good teacher, you have to be able to explain it to everybody at their level of understanding and have to step into the shoes of other people. And so you have so many people like getting this knowledge and not knowing how to integrate it, basically. People are at all of their different levels of understanding. People have their own nervous systems with their own reactions. And a lot of the news, of course, is like very not good. Like the climate change and the change of weather and what's in our food and people's diets and the health system. Like it's, you know, there's a lot of bad news there, and a lot of patterns that are deeply ingrained, and it looks pretty grim if you take it in a black and white way like that. You take, these are the patterns and we have to break and smash these patterns, and we're trying and we can't. It's like a black and white kind of thing. And so, you know, of course, this creates a kind of mental tension. Like there's something happening, there's something wrong. It's a persistent stress in the background. It's like if you have a stress of poverty, you know, that constant stress Am I going to have enough money? Where's the money going to come from? Can I eat? Will I pay rent next month? Where's the money? You have that constant stress in the background. Or if you're in an unsafe environment, with an unsafe person or something like that, you always have that stress, always have that tension gnawing at you. So it's like that, but in like an existential way all the time with all these systems, the banking system, there's capitalism, there's the patriarchy, there's all these things that are allegedly causing harm that we can't do anything about. And of course, what does that lead to? That leads to either people fighting harder, or at least just people giving up. And the ones that are wanting to give up, they get pressured by the ones that are fighting harder, saying that they're not doing anything, or people just disagree altogether and saying, no, this isn't what's happening, you guys are crazy. It creates so much more polarity, the more pressure builds. And of course, there are a lot of things that are wrong, and we should be working hard to make the world a better place. But there's also this kind of value in a lot of Western countries of this like puritanical culture that says that we should be working hard and we should be pushing ourselves to our limits, and we should be suffering. Suffering, we can't help the suffering. It's like the winters are hard and things are scarce, and we just got to push through. We got to push through. It's like a very trauma response to living on the edge, and you just got to keep fighting. And the problem is, when the trauma response is gone and you still have that culture, then you still have that habit, and then people are just pushing themselves to their limits for no reason, creating tension in themselves, spreading tension to others. And so you see a lot of just tension and fear. You see people that, there's an existential problem for so many people, a lot of these issues. Like, there's so many issues you can't argue with people about because they see them as such an existential issue. They've built them up to be so important. Their nervous system has equated them with life and death. And so you argue with people about like bathroom, who can use what bathrooms, and genders, and about the environment, and about, the food, or about why this, relationships, why are men like this and why are women like this. These become existential issues because of, anytime you have a nervous system overwhelmed, the mind isn't clear, the body isn't relaxed, so things that might have been small stresses then become big stresses. The body, the nervous system flares up, and the mind can't think clearly anymore and becomes more black and white and polarized. So yeah, with the internet, it just, I think, inundated people, and you have, especially in US society, this like deep desire to like know everything and to understand things intellectually, and to like prove your point and to be right, and to kind of like, there's a very egoic thing, like this, like I should know what I'm talking about. This like, we should know what we're talking about. Everyone wants like there's a real lack of people get they're very attached to their ideas and their perception. Like if two people have different ideas of how things are, like they'll argue and they'll dislike each other. They're because of the fixation on how, the egoic attachment to being right and to having their worldview. And I think it's like that, everyone kind of, I think all over the world it's like that, but I think in the US it's stronger. And so, in the old system of the Gurukula in India, the way that they taught people was people would go to the guru's ashram when they were young, and they would live there and they would learn there. And it's not just like it was today, where you just go to school and someone talks at you for an hour and then you get a little break and then they talk to you for another hour about stuff. It was a holistic learning environment. So, and I don't even think they really learned a lot in the beginning. I think they just did chores and stuff, and maybe learned just little bits of, here and there. So they gathered all the firewood, maybe they helped with cleaning, maybe they helped with cooking, maybe they, I don't know, just had different tasks to do to keep the place running, feed the cows, feed the cows, wash the cows, take care of this and that. And so the learning was holistic, and they're not just trying to force information into their heads. And the way that the way that they see knowledge and wisdom and yoga is that, the mind has to be ripe, the mind has to be receptive, and the mind, to receive anything. If a kid is hungry, if a kid is stressed from his relationships at home, and you send him to school, he's going, if his kid's cold at home or something, or hasn't taken a bath and is like smells, they're not going to be able to learn. You have to have a certain amount of receptivity due to, in taking care of yourself and your environment being stable in order to receive knowledge more deeply. Otherwise, the mind is agitated and busy. And so this goes for all sorts of knowledge, and the more subtle the knowledge, the more stable you have to be. And it takes time. It takes many, 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 many years. Like, they wouldn't learn the scriptures right away of these like deep philosophies of life. They would learn them over time, slowly, as it applied to the moment, and not just in this intellectual way that's detached from reality. But like, the more stable you get, the more expansive the mind gets, then you're able to receive more knowledge, perceive the more subtle aspects of life more broadly, and then you can receive that knowledge. We're all aspects of the divine. And when you receive that, when you're in the right state of mind, everything is permeated by the divine. Even right now, this very moment, your enemy, your friend, your thoughts, your emotions, your sensations, everything is full of divine energy and is, unseparate from the divine. You hear that at the right time, and your mind will just like melt, and you'll have a revelation. But you tell that to someone that's has a tense mind, like it's just, if you tell them it's true, they'll just go on repeating the thought, and they're not going to perceive it in their direct experience. So at the Gurukula, the guru would know the right exact moment for each student to give them the right wisdom, so that they would be able to receive and integrate it properly. Otherwise, Amma says, like a parrot, you can teach a parrot the scriptures, and what's the difference between us and a tape recorder if we're just babbling things about, non-duality and love and light and all that stuff? It has to be a part of our reality, not just something that we heard, or not just something we experienced yesterday. It has to be something that's like in our direct reality. So this is the problem with the internet also, is that you have all the information, all the knowledge, all the wisdom given to people that are at various stages of receptivity. And so that's what creates a lot of spiritual bypassing, is like having this track running in your head, repeating it to yourself. Okay, only positive thoughts, only positive. We're all permeated by the divine, but in actuality, we're full of anger and fear and resentment and lust and all those things, and we're ignoring our reality because of something a revelation that we had during meditation, or during some sort of plant ceremony, or that we read somewhere in a book. So it has to be integrated knowledge, and this is also the key to recognizing who's a proper teacher. There's so many people who can be a tape recorder and can charismatically repeat the words of wisdom, but who is the one that really has integrated it? That's something that, that's what's causing a lot of problems and chaos nowadays. Is, everyone wants to be a spiritual influencer and have the wisdom and share, because we have such an ego about knowledge. That's like, wisdom is like the highest knowledge. So if people that are very ambitious, they want to, they might want to learn it and then tell other people how much they know, and you can control people that way, and it's so there's a lot potentially going on. So it's important to develop your own intuition and discernment with that, so that you don't get misled by someone charismatic. But that's a whole other topic. But I think it's getting so far into the video, and it's I've only just started to talk about the internet, but and I think that's where I want to just stop. I'll leave more for the next the next sequence. But in terms of, yeah, what I, and you know, another interesting thing with the internet, you know, Americans also like love to argue and to like speak their truth and to assert their rights and all this stuff. And like the problem with social media and things like that is like it's permanent. Like an issue, you know, if you have a conflict with someone in person, it's like there's a natural rhythm to it. Like I think one thing, you think another thing, we disagree, I say my piece, you say your piece. You know, if we're both somewhat regulated, we're not gonna like hurt each other, or if we do, we like hurt each other, and then at some point we like regulate, and at some point our nervous systems are like, okay, like we're done with this, like we don't want to keep this going, like we want to finish and have some sort of resolution. So there's some natural organic like cycle to it. But with social media, like you can keep these arguments, you know, you had an argument you started last week pops up into your thing today, and then it triggers it again, and it's like it can keep you in this never-ending stress, and it's totally unnatural, it's totally unorganic and outside of like the normal human rhythms. And so it's just taxing all of our nervous systems. And so this is another thing leading to dysregulation and polarization of ideas as well. And so, and I mean, and also like, you know, to receive knowledge, you need to be in a suitable environment. Like, you know, if you're in a classroom with like next to a freeway, or there's like airplanes flying overhead, you know, there's like some, like in Vermont where I'm living now, there's a place where there's a public airport, and the National Guard military also has airplanes there, these F-35 airplanes that are so, you know, these like the most state-of-the-art airplanes that are so loud that all the people like had to move out of the area basically, because even though they're only flying overhead like 4 times a day or whatever, it's just so loud it would just totally disturb them. And it also causes like health problems. You know, the vibrations are so loud it causes health problems, and yeah, all sorts of problems. So it's like if you're trying to learn, you know, well, it's like, so the environment is really important. If you go to a bar and you try to take something in, you're not going to be able to learn in a bar or a strip club or a place where some people are dancing. You know, those places are focused on other energies. When you want to learn something, you go to a library, you go to a quiet place, you have a room with a controlled environment so you can really receive and absorb. And so looking at a screen, especially on our phone, when our eyes are narrowed, when there's those lights, like we're not, you know, our minds need to be receptive to learn something, to receive something. And when we're looking at our phone, we get so constricted, our neck is down, you know, cutting off the energy. It's like the sign, you know, this is like the posture of depression, when we're hanging our head in shame, or when we're feeling bad about ourselves, we look, so it's like we're cutting ourselves off from our energy, we're narrowing our eyes. You can, like, if you're paying attention, you can really feel it, versus like if you know, are reading a book, there's no lights coming at you, there's like, it's more softer, natural materials, you're holding it in your hand, you can also see the room, your mind is more expansive, you can be, you know, in a place with the lighting that's supportive, you know. So we get so much information from our phones, or, you know, even computers, but it's like the way that it's coming into our brains is not conducive to learning. So it's just going to stay on the surface, it's not going to integrate properly. And you know, a lot of stuff that's written on the internet is not really edited. You know, it's a benefit to having, you know, all of this content created by individuals, and there's no more gatekeepers anymore. You don't have to go through 50 layers of people, and anybody can publish a book and anybody can publish their ideas. So, you know, people that have things to say, that are valuable things to say, that may be out of the mainstream, but are still valuable and true, can have their voices heard. But at the same time, everybody is just, you know, splurting out stuff all the time, and there's many subtle messages in communication that we're receiving, energies of like fear or suspicion, or, you know, the communication is so delicate, and when it's unrefined, when we're just receiving so much, we're taking in much more than we know a lot of the times. And so through receiving different content, we're getting messages all the time, messages of that are giving us our values, that are giving us our feelings, that then inform our minds. So it's so important to be, so the internet causes all these things for better and for worse. I mean, we like so many things about spirituality. I know for me, I never would have had access to if I wouldn't have had the internet. So many things about relationships and healing. You know, you have access to so much knowledge and wisdom that could take you a lifetime to figure out. But because of so many perspectives, you know, so it's like, this is like really one of the challenges, is to be intentional and focused and filter and to from a somatic point of view, how is it feeling when I digest this and that, and to really trust our bodies more, trust those messages of our nervous system. So this is part one of kind of the cultural topography, the cultural milieu that we're seeing today. And this is my perspective on how the internet is affecting people's minds, people's nervous systems, people's even people's bodies, people's emotions especially. So this is part one. There's a lot more. I think there's like 3 or 4 other things that I think are major contributors and factors to how all of these things are, the polarities that are involved, the energies that are involved, why things are a certain way, why people behave a certain way, think a certain way. And so if you enjoyed this, stay tuned for more. I really want to thank you if you made it to the end here. I know it's a long time to listen to someone, and I hope you found some value. And I know I appreciate just having this platform to speak, and I hope that my words, my perspectives, my energy has been able to serve you in some way. So and at the end, there's so many, your head might be spinning. There's so many different things to integrate, to consider, to think about. I mean, this for me has been like a 10-year kind of journey or more. And, what I've learned from spirituality is really the most important thing isn't all of these details, isn't all of these facets and nuances, but it's really just coming back to our heart, coming back to our center, coming back to our faith, our knowledge that, right now I'm safe. Right now I can feel the presence of the divine, and I can feel, the light of the divine as I sit here in my room. There's so much to be grateful for. There's so much to enjoy. And that only comes from, that meditative process and that inner connection process. So, just go ahead and take a deep breath with me. Connect in, just notice how you feel. Notice your mind, notice your energy. And there's no need to remember anything. There's no need to believe anything. Take what works for you. Things might filter in later. You can always watch it again. You may learn something new. You may receive something new. But really, in the end, we should trust ourselves. And so it's important to trust your intuition, trust what resonates with you, not just believe me because I, have some insight or wisdom, but just take what works, and you can leave the rest, as they say. And just want to, connect to the higher source of energy, higher source of light, whatever that means for you. Take a breath. It's the first cardinal. There's a cardinal on the tree outside of my window. It's the first one I've seen since I've been back. It's one of my favorite birds. Okay, wishing you a beautiful day, and hope to see you for the next video.